It's not a love story. It's not a coming of age. It's not the kind of thing you put into a play.
What was your first real project together?
A musical called The Woman Upstairs.
Oh, that's right, The Woman Upstairs. Yeah, that's right.
Which was at the New York Musical Festival in 2005. This is our 10-year writing anniversary.
We
wrote our first song
on
September 12th, 2002. So 10 years ago.
10 years.
Wow. How did you meet?
We've known each other since we were very young. We probably met in elementary school at some point. But I did a show that her dad directed in 6th grade. I was in Lost in Yonkers.
Were you in 6th grade? I thought you were only 10.
It's not 6th grade. I think I was in 6th grade. I think I remember having to leave play practice in middle school to get to a performance of Lost in Yonkers. But so I did a show that her dad directed. And then we just kind of flitted about.
We didn't really know each other. When we were in high school, we were at this thing called Young People's Theater Workshop, and Josh Young was a member there, and there's another girl called Carrie Brown who's been on Broadway too.
Marcus Stevens, who's now getting all these great reviews for Forbidden Broadway.
Yeah, he's in Forbidden Broadway, and it was this really awesome group of people, and we were in Little Shop of Horrors together.
Which was Audrey and I was Seymour.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. We did not get along.
Because I'm 2 years younger, so
yeah, it was no good.
And
I was as tall as I am now, and I'm pretty tall. I'm a little shorter than he is now, and he was really annoying. He sang all of my high notes.
Our love was not meant to be.
That's awesome.
But we reconnected. I was dropping out of Harvard my freshman year, and my mother was really stressed out, so she went to get a massage from Kate's stepmother, and Kate's stepmother is a masseuse.
That's what she does.
And told my mother, and they were talking, and they conspired that we should write together when I moved to New York, which I did. And so then we started writing, and so we reconnected that July of 2002, and went to see a production of Hedwig, talked about Hedwig. Then we just hung. We had left one of our cars somewhere, so we sat there on the hood of my car in the parking lot and just talked for hours.
About the Indigo Girls.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
and Hedwig.
Yeah.
which
I've never seen before, so it blew my mind.
Yeah, Hedwig's cool.
And and within 3 weeks we'd started writing a musical.
We were in that awesome period of time when you're your age, when you're in college and you don't know what you're doing yet. I especially didn't know what I was going to do next. Brian kind of had this path, and he was like, I'm going to go write musicals. Do you want to come? And I was like, okay. Weird. But he was like, yeah, we can make a living at this. We could do this. And I was like, all right. And then 10 years later.
Right now.
You've arrived.
Right now, the thing in Tales from the Bad Years that feels the most autobiographical for me is the thing that I had the least to do with in terms of the text, which is the opening number. And it's always the thing that you need the most distance from to be able to name. But it was so what's the word? Not invigorating. It was gratifying to be with you guys the other night and work on that song with you. I'll talk to the camera. We have a brand new opening number that we just kind of pulled right off the computer and just pulled it, and we're here, sing this, take a look at this, and you guys said, oh my God, you just said what it feels like, and it's a weird thing that we're talking about. We're talking about the world is ending, but I mean, certainly when I was 18, it felt okay, I've got 6 months, maybe a year max before
I'm old.
Before I'm old. Yeah. It seemed so imminent.
Yeah, that's and I found that period, I had the experience of having a friend take me out to dinner after my senior year of college. I just finished, and I was in the summer of after my senior year of college, and she told me that it was as bad as I thought it was. And I was miserable, and I was correct that I was miserable, and that a year from now it would be okay, or at least more okay. And then a couple years later, Brian graduated from college.
Right after Henry and Mush, right?
And he lost
I remember standing outside of Chelsea Studios crying, and Kate just turned to me and she was like, "Oh, I forgot to tell you." It's really bad right now. It's just going to be okay in about a year. And it really was. It was just
it's unbelievable. But there's that feeling when you, especially because you're waiting for something to happen. Because all of your entire life, there's always something standing right in front of you. There's the next thing that you're going to definitely do. You're going to graduate from kindergarten, and then you're going to graduate from middle school, and then you're going to graduate from high school, and you're probably going to graduate from college. Like, there's this path that you're on, and then suddenly they just, like, throw you out into an abyss, and you're like, oh.
So this is the first time that Tales, it's shifted from a song cycle. Can you say something about that process? I mean,
It was a bitch.
yeah.
It's been horrible.
It was really, really hard. We started out with trying to just take it was a 5-character, plotless song cycle. It didn't have any real story. It had an arc over the course of the evening. I mean, we still got to Holding On, but we felt like it wasn't totally resonating, and I think I was the one who sort of pushed for it. And while I was pushing for it, we ended up in a situation where we were like, all right, let's lose the idea of 5 characters. Let's see how many characters we need to do this.
That was the best thing that's happened.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And then we ended up at 10, and then from there we ended up with 2 more.
You can't do this music with 5 people.
No, and that changed everything. It actually made it doable for singers.
Otherwise, you
before
need the greatest 5 singers.
Yeah. So as much as this
on
is a little harder
credit.
to produce,
Yeah.
it's also a lot easier to produce because you have a lot more people to work with, and there's a lot more space to make all that sound. Rachel is the name of Brian's little sister.
I'll just
We
cool.
named all of the characters after people in our lives.
Literally?
Oh, that's great.
We were like, we have to name these characters. We can no longer call them Man 1, Man 2.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, I guess we'll just name them after our friends.
So are the characters similar to your friends?
Jansen is our friend. And we also named somebody Mike. And the guy's named Mike Jansen. He got 2.
Oh, awesome.
I can't believe that.
I can't believe he got 2, but he's the person who will love it the most.
Are the people similar to the
Loses
characters at all?
mind.
Some of them are very similar.
Jansen is Jansen.
Jansen is totally Jansen.
Oh, really?
Mike is also kind of Jansen.
That's awesome.
And Rachel is nothing like Rachel Lowdermilk.
She's nothing like Rachel Lowdermilk, but she is my younger sister.
But she is a younger sister.
Her sister.
Andrew is like my friend Andrew.
He's just that
Tessa
person.
is
Danny's named after
nothing
Danny
like
Goldstein.
Tessa. Our friend Tessa is not like this character.
But she'll also really like it.
Yeah, she'll really like having someone named after her. Allie might not like it, but
But that was, it
But
was
that's
just
okay.
right. Like, that was just a good name for that
had
character.
to happen.
Allie makes out with everybody.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Well,
But
we're-
in our show she doesn't. But but
Yeah.
back in the day at parties, Allie made out with everybody, boys and girls.
That's
Didn't
sort
matter.
of my thing.
Excellent.
word has it that Tessa is based on you, right? That there's some truth in that. Like that.
Yeah.
Do you find yourselves in a lot of the characters?
Well,
Like,
and Andrew is kind of based on you
I mean, most of this. I mean,
more than like anything else.
a lot of these songs are autobiographical, I mean, it's very different than a lot of the other pieces
Yeah.
we've written because a lot of the other pieces we've written, like, you know, the kernel of the idea for it, or like your reason for wanting to write something, even if it's an adaptation, you've got a personal way into it or something that like gets you. But in this case, a lot of the songs were written specifically about ourselves or about our friends.
And at first we weren't writing a show. We were just screwing around with writing pop songs.
yeah.
Because we hadn't done that before, and it was something we were interested in figuring out. And so we were just, writing some fun songs on the side. And they were standalone songs at start. So they were all things that were based on our own. I especially was trying to learn how to write about my own experiences without it being about me.
Yeah.
Not a Love Story was one of the oldest in the show now, right?
Not a Love
Not a Love
Story,
and Two Strangers were the two.
Were both songs that
interesting.
I started as lyrics, and then we came together.
We had a problem in the first draft of Tales from the Bad Years because we accidentally like raised the bar for our songwriting when we wrote Two Strangers and Not a Love Story, and so suddenly the other 15 songs in the show just
Really
were
not very good.
Not very good.
Oh,
They
really?
sounded like contemporary musicals. They
Yeah.
sounded just like everybody else.
There's a
that-
song called "Someone Else's Life" that people
yeah,
love to
that
sing.
people like to sing.
Oh
It
yeah, I've
just
heard a
sounds
million
like
different versions
Yeah.
of it.
it just sounds
Yeah.
like
I don't know
kind
why
of
they do
bland musical theater, and like we had a bunch of other songs like that.
It was really. It's weird because it's not quite a book musical still.
Right.
It's still walking that line. It's sort of a book musical disguised as a song cycle. The first act feels like a song cycle, and the, I guess, exciting and experimental thing about it is that it takes all these teeny tiny stories and then throws them together in the second act, and that comes from as much from a couple musical influences that we've talked about with each other, as it does from what's happening with the short story right now. There's really cool things that are going on in literature. Anyway, it's there's a Visit from the Goon Squad is really experimental in it, and it takes these stories that are separate, and they are self-contained and totally work on their own, and then connects them all by way of these characters, and suddenly you start realizing that this is one story.
We're proud of that. I mean, just to draw a parallel to that, every single song in the first act pulls.
Yeah.
Every single one is a self-contained short story.
That's
every
totally
single one.
Yeah.
That's been very important to us.
Yeah, and it's something that's happening in another genre, and that's something that always excites me too. I like playing with, experimenting with things that are happening somewhere else and trying to see how that is connected to what's happening in theater and how that can be played with. I was an English major in college, and I was kind of obsessed with the Modernists. And the whole idea of modernism, and it was not well liked at the time, was that the smallest moment matters as much as a war. The Mrs. Dalloway's party matters as much as the war that happened in the World War I. And they compare these two things, and I found that to be so beautiful and exciting and so important, because I think that the connection between the large and the small it's not that great a distance, because it's all about these emotions, and if you only have the experience of being this age, that's the biggest thing you've ever experienced, and of course you're going to get older and you're going to change and have a bigger experience, but it doesn't mean that you lose touch with that other smaller experience and how much that felt to you. So that's something that I've always been interested in, and it's something that Brian got really excited about too, and we've been working on that for a long time, and it's something we do all over the place, trying to elevate these really small moments and also make really big moments kind of small. There's some really heavy emotion in the show that's minimized and barely spoken about, and the hope is that makes it more weighty, because you have to find it, while we have to draw out the emotion of something that looks very small on the surface.
And I think also that not sort of hitting us over the head with what the emotion is, but also, I mean, just to go back to Not a Love Story for just a moment, that part of what I think makes it work in that idea is that some of the imagery is so specific but so resonant, like that, spooning in a dorm bed. I mean, I remember that so clearly. And, that, I mean, of course, for me it's
Y'all
different.
too.
Oh yeah, well,
I mean,
yeah.
They're so small.
It's like, I wonder, do we still have those, like, stupid dorms? And of course,
yes.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is that, yes, we still have those extra long beds that are
tiny.
Extra long,
so
very narrow.
weird.
And yet you're in that, a lot of times in that age group, it's your first sort of really serious, significant relationship. And so it does
fit.
You don't fit, but you're not going to admit that you don't fit.
I want to know, so I mean, can you speak briefly about how UMD's production of Tales is imperative to the process? I mean,
we've never actually done a production of it. We've done workshops of it, and we've staged some of it, but we've never gone all the way with it being we knew that we wanted dance in it, but we've never really gotten to see everything. And
it's not the most commercial piece of theater ever,
right.
And it's also not like, and it's a tough thing to develop.
Colleges want to do it, and nobody else knows they want to do it yet.
Right.
And that's sort of how everything that we do goes. So we kind of decided that we should embrace that and just start working more with colleges, because that's who likes what we do. And we like colleges. So
this is going to be the path for us to continue doing that. Once we have a full draft from having done this, then we'll be able to go to other places and continue to
finish off the development and make sure that, we'll come back. We're going to come back in February and be here for tech, and then and the first performance, and see the show, and we'll learn a lot from that. And we'll learn as much from that as we do from being here this week.
Right.
And then we'll make some notes, and we'll tell each other our best and worst, what worked best for us, what worked least well for us, and what we can do to fix it. And then we'll do more rewrites, probably, unless everything goes swimmingly well, which would be awesome. And we'll make some changes, probably, especially like in that second act, which is so intense and crazy.
Right, and that this will be, that you're just kind of making it now, but then also kind of seeing it on its feet for the first time.
Yeah, we'll learn a lot from that.
We also have a new opening number. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's
like a brand new opening number that we literally did not have before.
But one of the things that we love deadlines, so having a deadline and having there be people who need something.
Yeah, we're just kicking shit out this week.
Yeah, we get all work a lot
faster.
Yeah, and it's all awesome.
Thanks.
I mean...
We've been trying to increase our awesome quotient over the years.
We try.
But it's also really exciting. It's really exciting to be working on it with people who do relate to the material so much. And
it is funny though, because you guys are at the very beginning of that cycle. So there are moments where it's a really trippy experience to be like, oh, you haven't done this yet.
Right.
But, it's been interesting just working on it, listening to the recordings of some of the songs where most of the performers are like sort of late 20s, early 30s. Yeah. I was at first thinking, oh my God, how is this going to sit on our students?
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh my God, how could anyone older do this show?
Right.
So if I was working with a cast of actors who are older, I would maybe feel differently.
Right.
But I think it actually just kind of going with that, being at the beginning of the journey, it's gonna color this production.
Sure.
But in a way, I think that is totally fine.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
So what's the hope for the show then? For Tales,
what's your hope for the show?
No, what's the goal? What's the goal for the show long term? Like, where do you see it going? Like, what do you want for it? Do you know what I'm saying?
I want colleges all over the world to do it.
I want them to make a movie adaptation of it.
Do you?
Yeah.
My actual hope is that we will do it in like a warehouse in Williamsburg in about a year.
Oh, that would be
and do it like as immersive theater and have the first act be a song cycle that everyone's watching, and then when you come back from intermission, there are no chairs and everyone's drinking.
Oh,
like intermission might be 20 minutes, I don't know, but everyone's like drinking, and then the whole show, the second act all happens with you and around you, and like you're walking through the second act, and the party is.
That would be really exciting.
It'd be really cool.
We'll see.
Brilliant.
We'll see what happens.
So, I mean, what do you hope that people walk away from this show with? What do you hope that people?
I hope that old people like it.
Me too.
I think they won't. That's been the biggest problem with Kate and my work right now. Old people don't like it.
I think that's actually not true. Okay. Really old people, like respirator old, they do not like it.
Okay, yeah.
We have never cracked that crowd.
Right.
But we always end up in we've ended up in really funny situations where we're in like talkbacks at productions or workshops of shows.
Right.
And inevitably someone who's moderating the talkback will say some sort of loaded question to the audience about how they don't like the show and how they're
Don't
too
you
old
wish
for
we had
it.
produced X instead?
They say something very strange about how the old people can't possibly relate to these 20-year-olds or 18-year-olds or whatever it is. And we've had the lovely experience of people...
Well, I'm here with my granddaughter, and I just thought it was lovely, and I liked this.
Oh,
and
really?
I loved
I remember
and
when
I liked
I was
the Have
that
Sex
age.
With Me song, and I liked this.
And then it's really amazing. It's like we pay them, but we didn't. I think people.
I hope that it can find a general audience, and I hope
Me
that
too.
it's something that people can look at and see themselves in, even if they are not. In that place.
And in terms of our audience, I will be interested to see, but I am also hopeful that there is that idea that, well, maybe your growing up wasn't quite like this, but everyone has gone through that process.
So how do you like Duluth so far?
It's great. We've eaten
It's great.
really good food.
Yeah?
Yeah, we've discovered that there's a very big
Great local
local
beer.
food movement and beer movement, and that's great. We're really into that.
And I had a weird local Tom and Jerry, which is like some kind of hot drink they have.
Oh yeah,
I had
and
a
we're
Tom
gonna
and
go
Jerry,
back to that
Elk
wildfire
Burger.
place, I think.
Yeah, we like the
wanna
like
have
the
one of those.
Fickers Brew House.
Yeah.
Fickers Brew House.
That's
We
where
like
we're
the
gonna
Elk
go for the
Burger.
wildfire.
Delicious.
We haven't had it yet.
Nope. We like lots of
The
oatmeal
co-op is
stouts. You guys have so
awesome.
many oatmeal stouts.
so
Love
many
the oatmeal
stouts.
stouts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
we have a
really
good
into
co-op.
the food is specifically the thing that I'm enjoying the most.
I'm
when I
enjoying the
Duluth.
beer more.
I'm enjoying the beer as well.
Yeah, there you go.
But the food,
Have
I
you
think
gone
is
to-
pretty great and like
You
all
gone to
very.
Bene yet?
No.
No, I saw
It's
that.
a really great little Italian
There's a
place.
crazy awesome bartender at Pizza Luce.
Oh
though.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
nuts.
He's the man.
He's got a
Can't remember his
mustache.
name, but-
Oh, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I
That
think I know
guy?
what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. He's bizarre and wonderful.
Suspenders.
Yeah, suspenders.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
got
I
a
know what
whole
you're talking
thing
about.
he's doing.
Does.
Yeah,
I
he's
don't
funky.
understand
Oh my God.
it, but it's interesting.
You find that here, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God,
Everybody's
people are so
nice.
friendly. People are
Oh my
so
God.
friendly.
They just talk to you. They ask you where the day we went into the co-op, and the guy was like, he's like, have you been here before? And we were like, no. I was like, we're from New York. And he's like, oh. He starts telling us about all these places we have to go. Really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that to you.
Yeah, it
People
was
like to
great.
show off Duluth.
I guess when you're always in danger of freezing to death at any moment,
Yeah.
you're like,
Talk to
Well, and
everyone.
I do have to say, I'm sorry the weather hasn't been better this week. It's been kind of gray and crappy all week. I suppose it's good for your writing because it makes you not want to go outside, but...
it's not good for anything.
Yeah.
And somewhere out in Brooklyn, you're alone and you're drinking, soaking up the feeling that you've never felt nothing at all. Whiskey makes you brood, but that's your kind of mood.